going on in Tibet. Then you will understand what Chinese government is capable of. So there's a growing realization all around the world that yes, we should have listened to Tibet 60 years ago. We could have been more careful. Now we are listening, we are paying attention, and the support for Tibet is coming out in a bigger form, including the resolution in the US Congress.
Let me now ask you to answer the question that you just posed. What, according to you, Dr. Sangay, is the lesson that the Indian government and the Indian people need to learn from the manner in which China maneuvered itself into Tibet? What lessons do you think this holds for a country like India?
Now, there's a famous document called Simla Convention, which was signed in 1914. You know, the Simla Convention on Indo-Pakistan is very well known. Simla Convention on Tibet in India is not known. Since 1914, we have negotiated and come to terms regarding border of India and China, particularly in Arunachal, and border of China and Tibet, right? And since that time, we have renewed this trade agreement from 1914 to 2014 to 34 to 44 to 54, and it was all renewed between Lhasa and Delhi. But in 54, it was renewed between Beijing and India, and it came out in the form of Panchshil. If you look at that agreement, it's only in the preamble the Panchshil is put, but in the body, still the trade route from Sikkim to Yangtze to Shigatse to Lhasa, right? Now, since Panchshil, India had to withdraw its representatives from Lhasa back, and the presence of small military personnel or police security personnel back. And since Panchshil was signed, disappointment after disappointment has happened to India, including the 1962 war, right? And its influence in neighboring countries like Nepal and Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, and you see everywhere. So India needs to learn a lesson. By trusting the Chinese government fully, unconditionally, is not the way to go. You must have relationship with China, that's a fact. You must have business relationship with China, that's a fact. But you should make more profit from doing business. Diplomatically, you should gain more over 3,488 kilometers long border. So that's what India needs to learn.
You're speaking about economic profit. At this time in India, there's a huge call for boycotting made in China products, to pivot towards make in India and boycott all make in China products. What do you make of this Indian call, which in a different sense is also finding an echo globally, where a lot of companies are now attempting to move part of their global supply chains, which are largely driven out of China, and move part of them now to other countries?
Now, I've said this before, Now, there can be government regulations, with import-export license, with different kinds of taxes. You can control any kind of business from any country. People also has a role to play, whether you want to buy certain products or not. But people, how much ever, they will buy things that they can afford to, right? But, I've been saying, the celebrities, when they endorse any brand, including Chinese brand, they're doing it for money. They're not doing it because it's cheap. They're doing it for money, and you can start from there, So what I'm trying to say is doing business with any country, including China, it's a fact. But when you do business, you must make money from doing business with China, not other way around. The trade deficit is, disproportionately against India. That's not the way to go. That's what I'm trying to say.
Would you support a call for boycotting Chinese goods?
As I said, if tension is very high, then it is for the individual Indian citizens to decide whether your national security or the security of Jawan is more important, or your entertainment and pleasure over Chinese software or Chinese hardware. That's how you should decide, right? But you can start with celebrities, not endorsing products. So that's what I endorse, because they're doing simply it for money.
So that's an important call that you're making, asking for Indian celebrities who are possibly watching this interview to stop endorsing Chinese products. Have you had an opportunity, Dr. Sangay, to have a word with His Holiness the Dalai Lama? What is the Dalai Lama making of the current face-off between India and China?
His Holiness Dalai Lama is a great spiritual leader. He is the greatest Dalai Lamas of all the Lamas. But in 2011, he has made it very clear that he is going to renounce his political responsibilities and hand it over to a democratically elected leader that happens to be me. So since 2011, I've been handling all the political and administrative matters, and His Holiness Dalai Lama is our most revered spiritual leader. So, I speak on his behalf, and behalf of all the Tibetan people on political matters. Now, His Holiness is 85 years old. He will be celebrating his 85th birthday soon, and he deserves his time. He deserves his rest. And he is, I know, loved by millions of followers around the world, including in India. And, he has been on the record, He has been the biggest or the greatest ambassador of India, advocating Nalanda tradition all over the world. And he had called himself the son of India because his body is made, made of dal and bhat of India, and his brain is of Nalanda tradition. So whenever there is a pain in India, His Holiness feels more than others.
I'm curious to know, what's your view on being the political successor to the Dalai Lama? While that is what His Holiness wants, what is the guarantee that China will not, like they did in the case of the Pancham Lama, come up with their own appointee and say, it will not be Loebsa Sangye, it will be XYZ, who we think the people of Tibet, and I'm sure they can prop some candidate up and announce him as the leader of the government of Tibet?
It's not me, Loebsa Sangye, it's my office will succeed the political responsibilities of the Tibetan movement and Tibetan administration. Now, as far as Chinese government is concerned, they already have, Tibetan officials in name, in token or symbolic position to be the head of Tibet Autonomous Region and so on and so forth. But the credibility is not there, and most importantly, they don't have power. The Communist Party's secretary, General Secretary of the Communist Party, is the most powerful person in Beijing as well as in Lhasa, and he is always Chinese, right? So, and then the security apparatus, judicial apparatus, police apparatus, political apparatus, all are majority Chinese. So that much of distrust that they have, even to a token presence of Tibetan officials in Lhasa. So they have already propped up, people saying they represent Tibetan people. Tibetans in Tibet, they don't agree with them. And obviously we don't agree with them. And they don't reflect the aspirations and representation of Tibetans in Tibet. That's why, as I said, if Chinese government is truly confident, then they can have referendum and hands down a Tibetan person will win that vote.
Finally, what's your intuition, what's your best sense of what will happen in this India-China border face-off? What would you be recommending to the Indian establishment to consider and keep in mind as they move forward?
Till the issue of Tibet is not solved, border incursion from 200 to 300 to 400 a year will continue. And this kind of issue will keep coming whenever there's some internal pressure on the Chinese government or international pressure on the Chinese government, right? This kind of problem will continue. So till the border changes from Indo-China border back to Indo-Tibet border, it will continue. So we must find a long-lasting peace. Hence, Indian government should say, let's solve the issue of Tibet, then the border tension will go down. So Chinese government always says Tibet is one of their core issues, For example, Xi Jinping has been on the record to say security and stability of China is dependent on security and stability of Tibet. That's how important it is for the Chinese government, right? So similarly, the Indian government should also say, we say in India, Bharat ke Suraksha, Tibet ke Azadi, So for the security of India, Tibet is very important. And please do pay attention to what's happening in Tibet, what has happened in the last 60 years. Learn lessons from Tibet. Really, you can learn a great deal. Then you know how to deal with the Chinese government and Chinese leadership. And it will only benefit India and the great people of, India.
Lastly, can you tell us a little about the significance you attach to that stunning palace which serves as the backdrop of this interview and your hopes of maybe one day going back over there, and you still believe in that hope that maybe one day it will come true?
Thank you, Rahul. That's a great question because I'm, sitting in front of Potala Palace. That's the winter palace of Tibet. And, one next to me is the Tibetan national flag, right? So this is where, Tibetan government in Tibet was. And you can see in the screen on the right side from my side, left side from your side, is the residence with the yellow thatch roof, is the residence of His Holiness Dalai Lama. So we all want to see, and Tibetans in Tibet would like to see His Holiness Dalai Lama back in Lhasa, the capital city of Tibet, and in the same room of Potala Palace. That's our dream, that's our aspiration. And with Ahimsa as our guidance, and with the support of Indian people, we will get there sooner than later. And once we are there, all this border tension and all this, issue will disappear also. That's our hope.
Many Indian people have been lifelong supporters of the Tibetan cause, and I do hope that one day the hope that you've just held out, the hope of being back in the Winter Palace next to the residence of the Dalai Lama, that hope does come true. For the time being, Dr. Sangay, for joining us on this special conversation, thank you very much. We wish you and your cause all the very best.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.